goal of this conversation is to follow up on some of the really incredible ideas that came out of the last Women in Tech Forum. And Denise here, who just popped up on screen, was there. Hi, Denise. Always good to see you. Christina is back on screen. Hello, hello. So like I was saying, we're really trying to follow up on some of the ideas that came out of the last forum to put together an action plan, whether it's figuring out some portals. We created a Slack channel I want to start inviting you all to, dedicating time in our weekly newsletters to really poll and create calls to action to our TechUnited community and to hopefully to your communities as well. I want to put some real investment sort of to what we were talking about. I don't want to just say, oh, these are all great ideas and I think you're all fabulous and that's see you soon. I want to really kind of say, okay, here's what we can do and here's how we can make the most of this community. So the Slack channel will definitely help, but I wanted to have this discussion as a group to see what we can do to give a little bit of shape and leadership to the conversation. So before we get started, I would love it if everyone on the call today would just briefly introduce yourselves. I'm going to go around and call on people just because I don't know the order of everyone on your own screens. Anna and I already said hello. Denise, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, hi everyone, and good morning, good afternoon. My name is Denise Brouder. I'm the founder of Sway Workplace. We are a building community around helping people mastering flexible work as the new normal. Based in Westfield, kind of central north, the ongoing debate. There is a central New Jersey, that's the area that I'm in. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome, thank you for joining us, Denise. Christina, can you say hello to everyone?
Hi there, good morning. My name is Christina Langdon. I'm coming to you from close to Westfield. I'm coming from Summit, New Jersey. I am not necessarily in the tech world, but I am a high performance coach working with a lot of women in technology, particularly of a younger generation of them myself, to have them achieve success on their terms.
Excellent, thank you for joining us. Diane? Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, I'm Diane McKay. I protect ideas and brands, and I have many women startup companies that I work with. I'm actually a patent lawyer. I work in Princeton, New Jersey, when we're in the office for the law firm Porzio, Brumberg, and Newman.
Got it, very nice. Thank you for joining us. Ellen?
Hi, good morning. My name is Ellen McGrath. I work for a small company named Retaurus. We provide business-to-business secure fax, email, and text services. The company is founded almost 30 years ago out of Germany. It's been in the United States about 8 years, based out of Secaucus, which is where my office is when I am working in the office. And my focus or my role is to implement the larger scale, more complex customer solutions. So my title is Senior Project Manager. I have an engineering background.
Very nice. Thank you for joining us today. And we have a couple people that are off video today. I see Starlet is with us. Are you able to say hi?
Oh, hi. Hi. Yeah, I'm an account manager at Internet Creations. We're a Salesforce partner who does professional services as well as provides custom apps and apps on the App Exchange for Salesforce users. We focus on making sure our customers can provide the most excellent customer experience every single time. And we're in Hamilton, New Jersey, but kind of all over the place right now.
Excellent, sounds good. And I know we have, I think it's Avis on the line, but I think the video and audio might be working, might not be working. We might need a little chat intro from them for now. We'll circle back. Well, thank you all for joining us. There might be a few more people that pop on during the call, but I want to get right into it. So I think a few of you were on the call last time. I know Denise was there. Were any other of you on the first Women in Tech Forum over the summer? Okay. So we had a really interesting discussion with a friend of mine from Twilio, who runs the startup ecosystem at Twilio. And Anna, will you keep an eye on people joining? If they do, maybe just see if they want to say hello in the chat. At least they can introduce themselves in case we're having a discussion, or they can just pop on either way.
Yes.
Cool. So, we had an interesting discussion about kind of returning to the workplace and the best ways to navigate, management and leadership, especially remotely. But what was interesting is towards the end of the forum, we really started to get into action items. Like, how do we actually promote women as leaders? How do we make sure that when job positions open up, that we are putting forth like interesting women who are successful? How are we diversifying the ranks? How are we, opening up additional exposure and awareness? How are we tackling things like parental leave? That came up, and that was something that was of interest to I think the Internet Creations folks, but there were a few others who were interested in kind of diving a little bit deeper into that. Not even had to tie into childcare in the world of COVID and like how that's handled. There were also discussions about how do we figure out the pulse of our community? How do we inspire them to take action? Is it a monthly poll? Is it a pledge? Is it some sort of evaluation that we develop for specifically, that TechUnited can share with its members to say, almost audit your company. What things are you doing to promote diversity and inclusion for women, people of color, like other individual groups, minorities, to be better represented in your organizations and have a voice? And all of that really kind of circles under the overall awareness and advocacy umbrella. And I think the final one was, how do we promote women as thought leaders, in speaking positions, in panels, in ways that they're really visible, not as just like participants, but really as like the main guests and the main feature of any types of engagement. So I just put down a whole bunch of different topics, and I'd be curious if there's any one of those that you all want to start with, and we can just kind of go from there. We can keep it super open. But feel free to just speak up, and if everyone starts talking on top of each other, it's totally fine. We'll sort it out. I'd rather have more conversation than less. Anything?
I'm trying to pull up a survey that I was going to put in the chat, so I will find it. And of course, my link isn't working, but there's a recent study that's been out. It's a Women in 2020. It was fielded in April of this year. And it really looked at women, sort of the younger generation of women between 20 and 40, asking them, what does success look like? And most of them said, success doesn't mean I need to get the CEO title as much as it means having fulfillment within my job. And they said one of the hardest things about getting there is that women still are not supporting other women. So I'm acknowledging, Jasmine, that I would love to participate in any way I can, because one of the, as part of my mission, I want to support other women to, send the elevator back down for them, if you will.
For sure.
I'm going to look for that link, because it's
when you get it, send it. But I 100% get that sentiment. And we, Anna and I created a Slack channel in our TechUnited Slack group for this Women in Tech peer network. And when I was putting the description to it, I was like, all right, we'll talk about things that come up during the forums and share news and that kind of stuff. And I added, and I don't know if you saw this, but I added, like, let's use this as a place to also just celebrate wins and just support one another. I think that can oftentimes be sometimes lacking in the conversation, where it's because it seems like there's always so much more to be done, right? Like, there's always another thing. There's always the next project. There's the next goal. So what you just said, Christina, about success is really interesting. And I'd be curious to hear how this group measures success individually, or how you look at it when you work with either like partners or colleagues, or even clients and customers.
Just picking up from what Christina said there, I think that in some way it's almost like us reorientating our perspective on what a group like this can do. Meaning, it kind of only recently hit me, like in the last year or two, the fact that most success in business has been incurred on the back of the old boys club. And that system has existed forever. And I think women as a whole have only recently gotten into this idea, like, hold on a second, I can do it, I don't have to do it on my own. So I think that there is, the way I view networks like this of tremendous value is the fact that we should develop our own version of the old boys club, in the sense that that is how business and ideas come about, and projects are funded, and handshakes are shook, and relationships are made. And I think that we should be able to think more collectively like that as a group together. And there's a huge value in the locality in the state of New Jersey and the support that's given. So all these elements are coming together to support women in general in business. So perhaps one way, and I really I align with the idea about being action orientated, is it is terrific to talk about learn something new and learn about each other, but how can we literally get down to the nitty-gritty of helping? Like, for example, I have a question about, you mentioned, Diane, that you are protecting ideas and patents. Like I'm creating an idea for a company I'm working on, and I want to patent the learning and development framework. And yesterday, I'm like, man, who can I ask that question of? Because it's a fundamental one that I've been able to lean in our community for something that's really real and that can really move the needle on an idea. That's what community is for me. And I would love to see us grow along those lines.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. I've been to many talks where, you know, there's been how there's such low representation of women at the CEO level, and, you know, what can we do to change that? One that was really inspiring was there was Executive Women of New Jersey had a talk at Princeton where Dr. Tillman, the past president of Princeton, spoke, and she said, well, the women have to be in the room in order to get the other, you know, you have to have candidates that are, you know, could be supported to get to that next level, and you have to support each other. And I think having this, you know, a group where you could support each other, and whether it's raising you up to the next level, getting introductions where, you know, there are good candidates out there for whatever level we're looking at. It's just sometimes you need others to support that or to get that word out. And having a network like this would be great. I'm always happy to discuss what I know well, and look forward to learning what, you know, you all have that you do well, and to help each other.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think that both of you just touched on, all of you really couldn't just touched on, part of it is simply having these conversations. I don't know about you all, but I feel like every time you meet someone new, like you learn something, you tie together a tidbit of something you learned in the past and something that they just said. There's always that opportunity to sort of like collaborate. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. We
Sorry
just
for
got the
running
discussion
late.
started. You didn't miss too much. We just got the discussion started. We're kind of going through some action items here.
Great.
Cool. I mean, I think part of it is participating and being a part of the conversation, and that's work. Like, it takes time to carve out time to go to forums or participate on Slack or like read news or whatever it might be. It used to be, you know, going to networking events and things like that. But it also is a little bit difficult, right? Like, it's tough to keep pushing for that support or asking for help. I think oftentimes, I was reading something recently, like, women are less likely to sometimes ask for help if they're feeling overwhelmed. They really want to say, like, I'm capable of doing everything and really handling it all. And at some point, like, that gets to be a bit overwhelming. But I think what I'd be interested to hear some of your perspectives on is just, what are the key things that you find yourself wishing you had a resource for? Is it stuff like patents and IP and like the legal things that are maybe like a little bit above your head? Is it, wow, like I'm trying to put together, I don't know, a proposal or pricing or a comp plan for an employee or something like that, and like I just don't know if this is on track or not in general? Like, is it that you want someone to bounce ideas off of? Is it that you need sort of that professional advice? Is it sometimes you feel like you're 2 or 3 steps away or 2 or 3 connections away from a client or a conference speaker or something like that you want to get connected to? Like, where are those gaps in what you need? Or do you have that? And if that's the case, what are you typically asking of those peers of yours?
I think a lot of time being able to make introductions is huge. I think that's actually massive. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you hesitate. So if you don't know somebody that well, whatever the case may be, or you think either your connection isn't of value or you can't provide a service like that, I think that's a big one. I think that's really like the grease that moves things. So I think just us being aware of the potential for introductions amongst our networks is a big button you can push that'll create value.
I think I would add on there, and only in terms of, like, sometimes people do get nervous about having to share a connection or share somebody within their network, and that's okay. Even if people know that they're out there, did you know so-and-so and so-and-so who's doing this? Because that might be somebody interesting you might want to connect with. I may not know them well enough to connect you, but here's how I would go about it. So it's really about sharing of the information and sharing that, portal to connection. And it doesn't even have to mean you have to do the one-on-one intro, which sometimes people get nervous about. Just knowing that that person exists out there could be a gold mine.
Right. So it sounds like it's sort of making the ask, even like saying like, okay, Anna, Sandra, and will you make that introduction, or how do I best get in touch with her? It's physically making that ask and knowing that there's someone out there who might be able to help, if not connect to you, figure out with you the best way to get in touch with that person or that business. So I think that's something that we could definitely leverage the Slack channel for. And that can be something that, like, within our TechUnited group we do overall, or it can be something that we do in specifically the women in tech peer channel that we made. And for those of you that are wondering, like, we just made it, so we'll send invites out later today. I wanted to see who was on the call, so I wasn't just randomly inviting people into the channel. But that should be something where it's just like, hey, does anyone know some like X person at X company, or does anyone have an in to this celebrity or this news channel or whatever it might be? But that's one of those things, like, providing just that forum to ask for it, like, is 100% something I think we can do. And I hope that, like, you'll remember it. Like, that's part of it, is there's always so much going on. It's remembering, like, oh yeah, and I could put the ask out to this person or this group. So I'll try to leverage it too. And hopefully, like, over the next month, we can all try to, if it's not, hey, does anyone know X? It's maybe, hey, everyone, I had a call today with Y, and she was really interesting. And I don't know what all of you are doing exactly, but she wanted to connect more with people in New Jersey in tech, or she wanted to connect more with X. Like, even if it's just sharing, like, what's going on. Like, I talked to someone super interesting in the SBA yesterday who's in charge of small business policy advocacy in New Jersey, New York. And she was so interesting. And we're trying to develop more programming with her and doing some research. But she's that kind of person where it's like, hey, I don't know if any of you need to know about this person, but I had a really interesting conversation with them and just wanted to put their information here in case any of you wanted an introduction. Like, it can kind of go both ways. It's tough to think like that, and I know that requires work, but there's often times when, like, you'll connect to someone super interesting and want to just share them with a group. Maybe we can use this as an opportunity to do that as well.
Jasmine, sorry, I'm going to have to jump here in a minute, but two very quick things. One is, I think that's an excellent idea. It's almost like the give and the ask. What's your give and what's your ask? And the more that this network gets to know each other's backgrounds, we know what's relevant. Like, you don't need to know what I had for dinner last night, but I'd love to know what that person told you, the SBA, because that could be fascinating for me.
Yeah.
The second thing is, another way to be able to use this idea, a channel, is that on the last call that we had, we brought up the fact that our team worked on this response to an RFI from the Labor Department on paid leave. Mm-hmm. And since then, we created this 20-page paper, these suggestions for advancing paid leave and flexibility on a national level in terms of the future of work. And we shared it with some people that we knew, but if I had known better, I would love to come back to this community under a call for action on an issue that relates to all of us, for everyone to jump in, take a look. If you have time, contribute if it's there you're interested in. And that's like a major way to collaborate amongst ourselves on issues that apply to all of us. So just that call to action, as well as the introductions, plus the give ask, could be great ways to think about leveraging our network.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of that give and take. And also, I think it's important to recognize that Denise's report might be interesting to every single one of us, but there might be times when I'm going to share something that, like, only 2 people really care about. And that's okay. It's knowing that maybe not everything is going to be, like, universally as exciting as it is to you as it maybe is to me, and vice versa. But it's keeping the open lines of communication and leveraging it as, like, a really hopefully active channel where it's constantly, ideas, action, thoughts, like, ways to connect people. It doesn't work if it's just one way. I think you're absolutely right. It's about constantly sharing. And look, it's not always going to be, I'm doing all this sharing and they're like, you know, and I'm doing 50% sharing, 50% asking. Like everyone's probably going to be a little bit different. Like there might be a month where I'm like, Karen, I have 7 people for you. And the next month I might be like, Karen, I have nobody for you. Like it's not always going to be 100% even, but I think it's about making the effort and like staying active that will really make it an actually helpful channel. Bye, Denise. Thanks for joining. Karen, I know I just singled you out, but I know you get to introduce yourself to everybody. So do you want to take a quick second and say hello to the group and just introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Stringer. I'm a partner at a law firm in Summit, New Jersey. It's called Olander Feldman. Kurt has been involved with the Tech Council for quite some time now and speaks so highly of it. So Kurt's background is kind of M&A deals for, you know, mid-sized companies, in particular in the tech industry. I'm more on the litigation side of the house. I heard, you know, Jasmine talking about IP issues. So I've done a lot of IP litigation and other litigation and just help tech companies through kind of issues that they have, and also try to help ward off compliance issues. So I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office before joining Kurt's firm. So I also help companies out when they're undergoing government investigations or if they have internal investigations because they're suspecting wrongdoing somewhere. So that's kind of my background. But, you know, a lot of the companies that we service, I think because of Kurt's clientele, tends to be kind of mid-sized companies in the tech space.
Okay, sounds good. And is this your first time? I think you were at the first Women in Tech Forum over the summer, right?
I was not. No, I had every intention of joining and then unfortunately couldn't. So I was very happy to get on this one, albeit a little bit late. So sorry about that.
That's okay. It's what I was just saying before. It's just about making the effort. It's never going to be perfect. I'm glad you could join. Okay, cool. Well, I'm realizing, so we've got about 30 minutes left, and I know I brought up a lot of topics at the beginning, but I'm realizing, Ellen, we haven't heard as much from you, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on what we've discussed so far or what your perspective is on all this.
Did you say Ellen, Jasmine?
I sure did.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Yeah, and I apologize that I have to leave for 12:30 customer call. So
good thing we got your last 2 cents right now.
Thanks. One of the things that I would treasure from a forum like this is the opportunity to be mentored or to mentor others and to receive mentorship. I've never had a mentor in my career, and I think that is a missing element. It's a very important element. I know many successful folks have reference mentors when I've listened to them in a presentation, especially for COVID. There have been so many wonderful webinars that you can participate in remotely, and many things have been opened up to a larger population. So I've been able to benefit from hearing many people speak, and so many of them mention, well, my mentor this, and then your advocate, the person who's speaking up for you when you're not in the room. And I've never had either, and I believe that that's an element that's missing in at least my professional formation, and maybe other folks might feel they could benefit from that. I've done some research in the past about how do you set one up, or how do you, establish rapport and relationship, and it's a big commitment. So I don't know if this forum is possibly the right forum to introduce something like that.
That certainly, it certainly makes a lot of sense. I think, as an organization, like we are trying to launch a mentorship network. We're doing our first cohort soon, and then we're going to launch them every 3 months. So at a minimum, we'll try to get you involved in our next mentorship cohort that we can help facilitate. But I certainly think, and I don't know if Christina has any thoughts on this, but I think it'd be very cool if maybe by the end of the year or sometime early next year, we were able to develop even a simple framework for mentorship and advocacy that individual companies could potentially implement. That's, even if I say simple just because it's easiest to start that way with like a very, very abstract concept of just saying, let's start to match people and let's start to pair folks internally so that everyone's got almost like the buddy system. Everyone's got someone to kind of lean on to bounce ideas off of. And, oftentimes if you can pair people that are cross-functional, it can help to spark even additional ideas. Oftentimes if you're not really always interacting with I don't know, the sales team or the operations team, and you bring them together, it could be a really interesting opportunity to not only advocate for one another and have a friend out like in another part of the organization, but to also bring some new ideas to the table and meet new people in your company too.
I believe you mentioned the cohort that's starting. I believe I submitted a request to participate, but I'm not certain I received anything. Maybe I missed the opportunity.
No, we're setting updates this week, so I'll see if I can make sure if we can get you into this one.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no problem. Christina and Karen, Diane, any thoughts on mentorship either way or internal advocacy? Oh, Christina, I think you're muted.
What I've learned about mentorship over the years is, as Ellen was just saying, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an event where someone has stood up and said, well, my mentor said, well, my mentor said. And I've always said, how come I don't have a mentor? And when I look back on it, you know, I think that the formality of mentorship is probably something of the past. And I don't really see that it exists for the clients that I work with. That said, I think if you want mentorship, Ellen, it is up to you to go and get it. So what I have learned that's been successful for me is that when I need support, guidance, I reach out to my network, whether it's my board of directors, that they're my closest tribe, or even have them connect me with people. I have gotten a lot of mentorship from people that you wouldn't necessarily say are my mentors, but there are people that I reached out to say, I could really use your support. And if they're not going to give it to you, and if they're not going to give you what you need, then they're not the right people for you. But when you go out and ask for help, it's amazing how much comes your way. So I'm putting an offer out there to you, Ellen. If you want to reach out to me, you're welcome. I'm here to help you, because
Thank you.
I'm on a mission to sort of help as many people as I can. And anybody who needs it should be able to get it.
Oh, that's so kind of you, and that's very great advice. Not perhaps a structured, forum, but the individual request for help and see if somebody is willing to give support. That makes good sense. You might need help or insight in different areas at different times, perhaps. Yeah, that makes good sense.
It should come to me, but I really think we are responsible for getting that mentorship ourselves. So going out and seeking it and asking and coming prepared. And then of course, as we were saying earlier, it's got to be a value exchange as well. What can I do for you in response?
Right. Thank you. And the best way to follow up with you, Christina, is how?
I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you so much. I'll take that, and then I have to leave for my customer call. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Ellen, and thanks for that, Christina. And I think along with that, it's definitely an excellent point. I think sometimes mentorship is seen as kind of that formal structure of like being matched and it's official and it's through an organization. It's just what we were saying earlier. Sometimes it's just about putting an ask out there. And sometimes that can be as easy as putting something out on LinkedIn. That's like LinkedIn friends. Like, I'm looking for advice on X. Any thoughts? And just let people comment, and you can say, feel free to share, and like let it build and kind of leverage some of that social media power as well. And part of it is exactly as you said, not always an official mentor, but having people even that you worked with in the past. You can say, hey, like, you're in my industry and, I'm struggling with X problem at my current role. And have you ever encountered this? Like, it's not always, let's meet up for once a month and get coffee and have like this conversation. It can be sort of on a one-off basis. It's like, I'm wondering about X. Do you have any advice? Right?
Makes sense.
Do you all find like you've had experiences like that where someone has just come to you kind of more on like a one-off basis and just been like, hey, I'm having a problem with this. Can you help? Versus, hey, would like to extend you this invite to be my mentor.
Right. Yeah, I think more along the line is when you have problems, that you have that network you can reach out to, whether it's like I have a partner I worked with over 20 years and he's of counsel now, but I'll bounce questions off him, but more like, you can go to someone and having someone in your network like this that maybe depending on the questions you have, it may be someone different you go to each time, but, more informal than I've never really had, a certain person's aligned to me or anything, but many along the way that have helped out on questions.
Thank you. I'm going to take off now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ellen.
Yeah, and I've definitely had kind of people in my life who I probably kind of helped at various times, like who I've met, you know, when I was more senior at a law firm or at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so I might not speak to some of those people who I've met like weekly or even monthly, but as they're doing transitions in careers or they have big decisions, they'll tend to reach out to me still. And so you kind of sometimes develop those relationships that, you know, it's kind of this informal relationship that just lasts over the years. And those are really, really, really helpful. And then I think I also have a number of relationships where it's kind of like the network relationships, where it's probably more my colleagues or peers. But I think the one thing that I'm really missing in my career is someone who's maybe more senior to me, someone who's maybe has a little more wisdom, a little more experience, who I can go to and ask questions of. And I think that's one thing that I personally would love to have, is just someone who I can, you know, not just a peer network. So not someone who's just in my kind of like same level of years out, because I think you do get something from being able to interact with people who've seen more than you. So, and that's a little bit, that can be a little bit harder to find. And I definitely find, at least in the legal world, and I, you know, it might be true elsewhere, that the men still stick with the men. And I don't find, there are a lot of the senior people in law firms tend to be men, and they just don't feel comfortable the same way taking you out to lunch, taking you for a cup of coffee to just talk about things. And so it is hard to find those female mentors.
That seems like something, I mean, I think it's easily something we could help you with. Like, I don't want to say easily because it's obviously a little bit of a difficult challenge, but that's something I know I could at least keep in mind. We talk to a bunch of different law firms all the time. There's many that are members of the organization. Like, I could just keep a little eye on that. But it's things like this, like every time someone in the group kind of can share a little bit, like it's super helpful. We can definitely try to keep that in mind. So I would assume, I don't know that much about the legal world, although I did consider being a lawyer. I love to argue with people, is that it helps to have someone who's a little more experienced, because there's always like that precedent, right? Like there's always someone who's kind of encountered a similar case or challenge like before you, and having someone who you can like go to who might have done it before would probably make things a little less challenging for you when you're coming upon like a new case or a new problem, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Just because everything's so nuanced in the law, and you know, there can be, if you can just kind of pick someone's brain and say, oh, I've got this issue, what do you think about this? And they might have seen at least something like that, and so at least you can kind of get down the right path. It's actually, it's extraordinarily helpful. It saves you time, and most importantly, it saves your client time as well, as you're trying to help them out.
You know who I might think I have for you?
No.
And I think I have someone for her, and I wonder if you remember who it is. She was a guest on a very early webinar in March.
I think I know who, but
I don't know if this is a crazy ask, but Senator Barbara Boxer joined our webinar earlier.
Oh my God, yes.
And she was amazing, like amazing. Really? And she's with another law firm now, but like since she retired from the Senate, she's been with this law firm that I'm blanking on the name of. But she was really awesome and like answered her emails, was super responsive, participated in a webinar about like the importance of the CARES Act and like small business law and things like that. So maybe you could go, I don't know how like weekly she'd be able to chat, but she might be someone you could go to, or she might know, I think she knows other people who could maybe help.
That's a great idea, although rather intimidating.
She was awesome. Great. I loved her.
She was great.
She was great. And she's like sitting there with her little, she was drinking out of a stemless wine glass, and it was just water, but it was such a funny thing to do. I've done that before on webinars, and everyone is like, are you drinking? But she was very cool. She was good. I'm going to make a note of that.
Engage with.
Great. Boxer. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I will see what I can do there. Is it Starlet or Star? Which do you go by? Because we haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I was having technical difficulties early on. It's Starlet is my name. A lot of people shorten it to Star. Either one is fine with me.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are your thoughts on all this?
So let's see. The mentorship piece, I don't feel like there's a one mentor. I mean, when I when I think of it, there's one person who mentored me the most. It wasn't an ask or a formalized, it was just, we were in the right place at the right time and really could collaborate well, and ended up being a mentor type relationship. There was nothing formal ever for me, and that was a man, so it wasn't necessarily like a woman mentor. I wish I could have a woman mentor, but at the same time, I know that I do have a network of people that I could reach out to and ask questions and get, honest feedback and advice. I've often thought about, well, here I will say, the one time I did try to do a formal mentorship where someone was mentoring me, not me mentoring them, it wasn't a great fit. It was like someone else tried to fit us together, and it was almost like a blind date. I was like, no, it's not working. So I do feel like, having the connections and just reaching out organically has been more successful for me. And people reaching out to me more organically than someone saying, hey, you should mentor this person, or hey, this person needs help, will you mentor them? If that has happened, but the more successful ones have been very organic.
I wonder what all of you think, just generally, like, I feel like mentorship was a really big thing a little bit while ago, and more recently, the shift in company culture is one that's a little bit more about open communication and establishing like a company culture, right? Like, I feel like we don't hear as much about true mentorship programs, like even internally, because it's more of like, okay, we have an open communication structure as an organization. We have daily stand-ups, we have weekly communications from our CEO. We have employee resource groups or like employee peer groups. And I feel like these days there's a little bit more structure to like fostering a little bit more of a safe employee environment or culture. Do you feel like that's true for your organizations? Like that's something you're seeing a little bit more of, or maybe not?
Definitely true for Internet Creations. And we're very open. And we're constantly doing like cross group meetings for whatever reason. Yeah, it's very open. And we have fundamentals that we, across the entire team, will write something about. So everybody from the entire company will have input on those fundamentals, such as like have each other's back and provide the why, and those create a lot of discourse around things that would typically be involved in a mentorship type situation.
Anyone else have thoughts on this? Anything you've seen in the last couple of years? Any shifts you've noticed, or not really?
Shifts in terms of culture? I mean, there's so much shifting going on right now. It's like change is the only constant. And I think the change has been, to some companies, very disruptive. So I think we're in a reinvention of culture across lots of organizations. I know that there's a lot of struggle. People are needing to really rewrite the playbook now that the workplace is no longer defined by a location. It means a whole nother conversation for the workforce. So I see just that culture's changing a mile a minute as much as change is happening all around us for some companies.
That's excellent. And I think that's a really valid point, that workplace is no longer an office that we all go to. It's this kind of collaborative environment that we all now have almost exclusively digitally at this point. And I think what's interesting about it is there's been a lot more online through Slack channels or Facebook groups, or like different kinds of even just like messaging threads where people are a little bit more open and collaborative online, because it's a little, and they're connected to people who maybe they wouldn't have been previously because they're so focused on that physical location. Now it's like, oh, like, if you've got a company with a branch on the West Coast, like you're probably talking to someone on the West Coast more now than you ever were before, because there's no barrier. You're talking to them in the same way you're talking to the person who used to sit next to you at your desk. Like there's kind of a bit of a shift there in accessibility as well. And I mean, what I sort of have been noticing is a lot of organizations, because of that open communication, like a mentor isn't necessarily always looked for by more junior employees because they have a little bit more of an open relationship with their superiors or like their bosses or management. Like it used to be, everyone was sort of fighting for themselves, and it was very much like you keep to yourself and your performance is really what spoke for you. But now I feel like things are a little bit more collaborative and open in terms of company culture. So it's not like manager and employee kind of doing things separately, it's working on them together. So I would expect in some instances, like superiors are also taking the roles of like mentors. Like I have a bunch of friends that they don't really have mentors, but they have bosses that they can really talk to and work with and go to when they need advice, instead of having to search outside of the organization for someone new. Not that an outside perspective isn't helpful, but to some degree, I'm not entirely sure that it's always needed anymore. Oh, Christina, gonna take a look at this later today. Thanks for sharing. Have any of you noticed this, or is this just me? I used to work with a lot of startups, and they're normally smaller companies that have explosive growth. So it's been really interesting to see, like, you know, now that I work with a little bit more of like the corporates, the government organizations, the universities, to see a little bit of that shift. And I'm just wondering if any of you either noticed that at your own organizations or as you've, you know, switched companies or jobs.
I'll say this. So for example, I work with Jasmine very closely, right? She is the person that I report to. And I think that, you know, you made an interesting comment, Jasmine, that like before the work culture used to be your performance book for you. And, you know, it was a little bit tougher to reach out to your superiors to kind of get that advice or whatever. But I think because of the collaborative nature of our relationship, for example, I know I can hit her up on Slack 3 million times a day and be like, I have a question about this, or hey, how can I do this better? It's enhanced my performance because now it's given me this confidence to do my job better. And I'm sure a lot of my friends too that are, you know, at the same career level as I am, when they have that more nurturing and more collaborative relationship with the person that they report to or that they, you know, work directly with, their performance then speaks for itself, because there's a confidence that goes with it. You feel more in touch with what they're looking for, and then it enables you to do your job better. But that's just what I've seen.
And I really didn't tell her to say that.
I just read this off my script, and I hope I hit every word.
Well,
but no,
like whenever I used to hire people, like my CEO always used to be like, this person, like how good you are is measured by this person. Like I'm not looking at your performance as much as I'm looking at the people that like report to you. It's ultimately like that's how you should be measured. It's by the team, and like because you should work together. So that's really what I've been thinking about. I don't know if any of you have experienced this as you've hired people or grown your teams or worked with other people, but I feel like that's kind of a fair measure, right? Like you want to kind of be measured by the team's growth and the company's success. And I think that's a shift as opposed to some of it that's always been like it's kind of my success and what I'm doing, and that's separate from what everyone else is doing in their own little bubble. We have about 15 minutes left. So I want to circle back what Denise was saying about parental leave in her report. I'm going to ask her to share in the Slack channel. We'll invite you all as well. And I can also share it via email recap, just so it's convenient for everyone. But I do want to spend some time addressing ways that we can collaborate with her on that initiative, whether it's just reading her report, seeing if we can engage with it, whatever it might be. I think that's a super interesting topic. I wanted to mention that the next Women in Tech Forum is going to be during Propelify. So during the organization's large tech festival, which is over the course of a week. The main topic of that is about leadership and community and building communities. It's a little bit of what I've been talking about now because I've been thinking about it, but I just want to highlight that all to you. It'll be on October 5th. The information for that will be coming, but I just want to mention it to you all now in case you might be able to make it. The other thing about that is talking about the asks and the intros that we were mentioning before. You know, I think leveraging the Slack channel is probably the quickest way. Are any of you in our TechUnited Slack channel? Okay, Anna is. We're gonna send you all the invite to the group overall and to the Women in Tech Forum channel, so we can leverage that. And we can also figure out if there's an easy way to make kind of like an email list or something like that. That's also a little bit more accessible. The reason why I lean to Slack is, you know, it's an easy way to quickly send messages. It doesn't have to be super formal. We can kind of like put things on threads. It's a little bit of an easier way to sort of organize some of this. We might decide it's easier to do an email thread or make a Facebook group or something like that. And we can definitely keep iterating on that. But I want to start today with like, if you have asks, if you have needs, if you have challenges, if there are things that you've been thinking about needing support with, even if it's like, yeah, I've been looking for, you know, a mentor or someone to go to for challenges. I'm looking for new clients. I'm looking to make a 2021 plan and I'm struggling with X, like what, and everything beyond that. Or like, I'm looking to get more involved with other events, other speaking, other universities, whatever it is. Like, I definitely encourage you all to share those with us, whether it's in that channel or in another forum that we have upcoming, or just over email or anything. And we'll start to aggregate those. And the same thing with what you have to offer, if anything. Like, I'm going to say like, oh, I talked to this SBA woman and she was great. And like, here's her deal in case anyone wants to learn more about her or get connected. Or, you know, here's a really interesting speaker that we have at an upcoming conference. And like, would anyone, is what her skill set is interesting to any of you all, like knowing that there's 2 or 3 of you in the group that have a common interest perhaps. And these are just examples. I'm sure you all have better ideas than I do, but I really want to try to have like a constant conversation going where everyone is remembering to come back to this group as we continue to hopefully grow it, to leverage and make asks and help. And then the last thing is just leveraging kind of the TechUnited channel. You know, we have a decent sized subscriber list to our weekly newsletter. It's about 35,000 people. I would really love to start doing a monthly poll or a monthly call to action that's like that we kind of agree on as a group and share each month. So it might be, you know, one month is review this parental leave packet that Denise made and do X, Y, and Z that she thinks makes sense. It might be just a couple questions like, do you have a mentor, or do you have a network of people? Like, we can expand on some of the things discussed today. It might be the last time you went to a webinar, you know, what percentage of the panel was female? Like, it can be really like anything that we kind of want to just either poll people on, get a pulse on, create a call to action on. But I would love to start doing a new monthly initiative each month through our newsletter to kind of just like continue to raise awareness and give this group a little bit of information to continue guiding our forums too, and guiding this group. And I'm hoping, you know, as we get into the new year that we can also spend a little time talking about truly like returning to the workplace. I don't know if any of you are back in the office now. I know we are until 2021, but I also want to keep that on the horizon, talking about what things are going to look like in the next year, and goal setting, and just doing a little bit of supporting one another in what we're looking to do over the next 12 months. Does that sound fair? Is that a little bit much? A little bit. We'll make it work.
Yeah, I think it'll work. I think it's great. And I think kind of having different calls to action and having things that we're focusing on and just ways to continue to connect is really, really good. I know that actually, quite honestly, for a while, like, you know, I had so many colleagues like at the U.S. Attorney's Office, so I didn't do much, you know, speaking with people outside of my group. And I didn't since I returned to private practice 6 months ago, and then the pandemic hit, and it was such a weird time to kind of go out meeting people. But I've definitely found that seeing the same people kind of over and over again and having that consistency and really getting to know each other has just been so great. And you really can do it even virtually. So I think just having ways to kind of continue the communication and to have things to discuss and stay in touch makes such a difference.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why I really wanted to be like, okay, let's get some plans in action. Like, even if it sounds like a lot, you know, let's outline a bunch of different ways. Doesn't mean everyone's going to participate in every single way, but let's talk about what we can do going forward and what the expectations are on my behalf, on everyone's behalf, like on behalf of the group too. Anyone else? I know we have a couple minutes left. Does anyone else have any thoughts for the group? Any remaining sentiment, asks, information, just ideas that you might have about how we can better like leverage growth as an organization or as a group? I know those are also big asks too.
Yeah, I think getting everyone to know what everyone's good at. Like we had the introduction here. I guess the group is bigger. Like to somehow put that out so we can work from that if we have a need somewhere.
Yeah.
You might have that in place already, but I don't know if there's a way we're connected yet.
For sure. I'm hoping to really leverage the Slack group as a way to keep everyone in constant contact. And that way Anna and I can continue to add people to the group as they join the network. And that way we can use that as an easy access point for sharing links, reports, making asks, sharing intros, and kind of like aggregating everything in one place. So we'll see how that goes. If not, there's another tool that we can potentially try that pings emails. I know that sometimes email gets to be a little bit overwhelming. So I want to give this a try. It's something you can have in a tab open on your browser or in the app on your desktop. So there's a few different ways you can keep an eye on it, and you can change your settings so that it also pings you an email if there's a notification. So it kind of like ties everything in together. We use Slack for Propelify, and for the organization, it's been going pretty well so far. So I want to give that a try, and that way we can really leverage it to keep the whole group together. Any closing thoughts, Starlet? I see you like looking like you maybe want to talk, but maybe not. You're good?
I'm good. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate this small group, larger group. I mean, every connect in the atmosphere we're in now has been helpful, even just, emotionally and socially, honestly. But yeah, this is good. And I think all of the ideas, I like the Slack, I like the call to action. It keeps us moving forward in a time where there are a lot of things pushing you to just like stop doing things. So I agree with a lot of what you said. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, then I'm going to have everyone, I'll close things out in a minute. I want everyone to take 2 seconds and think about it. Like we kind of already heard from Karen, but you can think of a new one. Like if there's one ask or one thing top of mind right now going on in kind of like your world, and there's something that this group might be able to help with, what is that one thing? Give yourself a minute. I'll say mine last. And everyone will have a reflective moment. And then I'm going to start with Anna.
Maybe I'll go second or third. I want to hear thoughts here first.
Karen, you can say yours is the same if you want to take the easy way out.
Yeah, I might do that.
Okay. Karen says find someone who's a woman and who's a little more experienced in her career to go to for advice. And we're going to try to link her up with Barbara Boxer on it. The next one, Anna.
Same. Find me Barbara Boxer as well. No, I'm just kidding. I think for this group, the Slack group, I'm really excited for, because I think for me personally, as it's funny because about 2 weeks ago, I made 3 years at this company, and it's my first job out of college. So this has been really great for me to kind of learn about how, a lot of different women in different points of their career have navigated their career and how they've shifted and focused. So for me personally, I think professional development and, the informal mentorship that we just talked about is really important to me. So I love seeking out, women that are constantly giving advice and, have tidbits like, hey, and you're going through this point in your career and you're feeling like this is how I navigate, and it worked for me or it didn't work for me. So I think personally that's what I'm seeking, and I hope that was the question, because that's my answer.
That was good. That was good. I'm going to move on to Christina.
I think the question was, do you have an ask? And I think my ask has already been answered in so much as I wanted to join today because somebody recommended it to me. And I feel like my ask has been delivered. I've met some new interesting people, and I would enjoy getting to know everybody better. I mean, as I think Star said, it's hard meeting people and networking with people and communicating with people. And I'm looking to surround myself with strong, powerful women so I can become stronger and more powerful. So I think my ask was answered.
That sounds good. All right. Diane?
Yeah, I think the ask, well, these days I used to do a lot of networking, and it was in the groups, but all personally. So now I think learning about new technologies like Slack, actually I'm kind of on the computer illiterate, being a lawyer. I am an IP lawyer too, Karen, but I'm a patent prosecutor more. To learn new ideas and ways to communicate and to get, more involved with other people over technology now than we've been able to do or needed to do before. It's I'm interested in learning all that and as asked to, keep people to give us those new ideas and ways to communicate. So that's what I'm looking for.
Sounds good. Star?
My ask is just to be part of a network that's supportive and helps to maintain individual momentum for each other is really it.
Sounds good. Well, mine isn't really anything. It's that I hope you'll all, continue to participate in what we're doing, and that you'll give it a try, thinking of the Slack channel or thinking of even just me to share with the group and ask for an idea or a speaker suggestion or an idea for an upcoming webinar or a company that should be better highlighted by our organization, or I ask that people remember to use us as a supportive resource and as an avenue, hopefully, to get more things done and hopefully get them quicker and with a supportive group around it. Because I know that it's a little bit an extra piece of work. It's like, oh, and I want to do this, but I'm hoping that it becomes where it's like second nature, be like, and let me ping the TechUnited group and see if any of those people have an idea, or if they have an intro, or if they think that this is interesting too, or they want to read this piece of news article or whatever it is. Like I only ask is you think of this and engage when you can, and know that when you can't engage and you're overwhelmed, that's okay too. But look to this group when you have the bandwidth to join the conversations. And really my ask was that everyone would come today and really be a part of the conversation. And that was satisfied. Like, it's tough sometimes to do this. Everyone's in their own home. You've got a million things going on. You've got tons of distractions. Everyone's got their own work. It seems like we all have about triple the same amount of work we had this time last year. So the fact that you all came and had great ideas and offered things up and shared is incredible on its own. So thank you all for joining us today. Stay tuned for emails and follow-up and all kinds of additional information. Anna and I are always available. I think you have my email anyway from registrations and things like that, but I'm also going to put it in the chat just in case I can help facilitate anything else that was brought up during the conversation today. And on that note, I'm going to end things promptly at 1 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.